video is made because of people ask me about relationships and how to heal a relationship where both partners is about to give up and surrender. And of course, it's not really possible to give a generalization of this. It takes... Every relationship is its own, so there can only be a certain amount of practices you can do, but you have to dive into your own, and therefore there cannot be like only one answer from that. But I will try to give at least an idea of something that can be done. Something that is very important to understand with love is that love is that which shines upon everything which is not loved within us. So when we meet someone and we fall in love and we start to grow into this love, it starts to shine upon the shadows within us. All these unconscious patterns which we are not able to fully love yet. So if we start to understand that the other person, if we're in a healthy relationship, if we're not in an abusive one, if we're in a healthy relationship where the other person is not manipulating you in a toxic way or abusive way, but actually just going through his or her own shadows, one of the things to really understand is that it's not the other person that does this to you. And this can be like a hard truth sometimes to understand, but it's actually the love, the space between you guys, which is the love. That is the thing that shines upon the shadow. So one of the biggest problems is if we actually focus too much on projecting towards what the other person did to me, what that person did, and these kind of things. It's not really helping our healing journey, because in fact the hard truth is that the most important is not to make the relationship work. The most important is to heal that within you which the love shines upon. That's the most important. And the beauty is that often when you heal that, you find into that love again. Not always, because again, love is there for as long as there is something to be learned. There's a lesson to learn. There's an experience that has to teach us something. And that is, as long as there is something of that love can teach two persons, it will teach and it will guide us through this. But it's not always easy, and that's okay. So if we keep projecting towards the other person, which, let's be honest, we have a very easy tendency to do when we don't want to face that within ourselves, which is not loved, then we have to surrender. And surrender can be very, very hard, especially when we are blind to what it is that we're trying to find. So what I said right now it's something that most people already know. But one of the things that I want to enlighten in this video is to understand that when something triggers you, remember, you should not react towards the other person. Even though the person said something, don't react towards that person. Take a deep breath and say, honey, I'm gonna go for a walk. Or something like that. And you go in with yourself and figure out, what is it that triggers me? What is it that actually affects me in this situation? And when you figure out what it is, you bring that into the relationship. But how can you figure out what it is? And again, this is not easy to generalize, but I will try to give some practices that can help in all situations, because sometimes we go too deep into also we go too deep in to try to figure everything out, and it's not always that we have to figure something out. Sometimes we just need to find peace within ourselves again and surrender, so we can see what it is that we are stopping within ourselves, what we're holding on to ourselves. And one of the most beautiful things I have learned, and I want to share with you, is to nourish the love between the two persons. It's not always necessary to only nourish the other person. I know it's important in many ways. It can be important to show affection towards the other and these kind of things, but you can find much of that in normal therapy and such. But I'm more talking about the energetically bond of nourishing the love between the two of you. So if you have, like, you're standing out here and the other person is over here, you have your truth and the other person has their truth, and somehow you have to find into the middle where both emerges together. But when we're standing in each of our corners and telling what the truth is, we cannot really meet in the middle. And what can be very important to understand is that you just have to walk in here yourself. If the other person doesn't do, that's not your problem. No matter what happens. Even if you break up, that's not your problem. This is the hard truth. But you will still learn what you have to learn. And that will only serve you, no matter what happens. That will be what serves you. Because you devote yourself to the higher consciousness through this. Because the higher consciousness can also come in the other person, yes. But the veil is thinnest to the higher worlds in that space between the two of you. Your truth, the other person's truth, the space between you two, which is the love. So if you can just sometimes close your eyes and you can go through all these kind of hard emotions and whatever it is, but just try to see if you can feel that space between the two of you that have grown and have been able to call upon such a beautiful force, which is love. Just nourish it. Feel it, nourish it with your heart. And you don't have to figure anything out in that moment. Don't try to figure the mentally aspects of how to do this, and how should we meet here and how should we meet here. Just forget it for a moment and just focus on meeting yourself inside that space. Nourish that space, because that space is more powerful than you and the other person. This space is more powerful than you and the other person. But we intend to forget that, especially when the shadow speaks. So this is a way to surrender to that shadow. Sometimes the shadow wants us to think too much and try to figure things out, because we trap ourselves this way. Because the shadow doesn't know that it doesn't feel good always for the shadow to feel the love. Because the shadow is that which is not loved, and love shines upon that which is not loved. This is why it's an intense purification to be in a relationship. But it can be so beautiful. What you have to do is not trying to figure something out for the other person, or trying to see what the other person makes of problems and all these kind of things. Sometimes you just need to surrender and meet and nourish the love between the two of you, because you have been able to call upon such a beautiful and strong force, which is love. And can you think about anything that is more powerful in this universe than love? Maybe you have lost someone where you can feel that strong force in love. Maybe you can remember it from your childhood to your parents, maybe to your own kids or something like that. But this force keeps going deeper and deeper. It's like the vastness of it is like it's eternal. That's how strong it is. And you have that right between the two of you, but when you scream and being loud out here, you cannot meet in there. So if you meet in there, you can actually nourish that space. And that can actually energetically open up for both of you. I'm not saying that this is the only thing to do, but often we have the tendency to already try to work things out with trying to figure stuff out. Sometimes it just requires devotion to the space between you that you have created together. And sometimes the rest dissolves because you already have surrendered. You have at least done your part of it. And sometimes love is not always polite, right? So sometimes it can also be it can be a very hard truth that maybe it's not meant to be anymore. But as long as we have done our best, we can look back and say, I did everything. And you first do everything when you surrender. Then you can look back and say, I tried everything. And then you can let go and you can forgive. So no matter what, it's a win-win. This is what I wanted to share. Of course, you can go much deeper, and I've helped a lot of couples before finding each other again. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Otherwise, I hope this resonated with you. And until next time, may you walk in beauty.